Buenos días, es para mí un placer presentar este evento tan importante para nosotros. ¿Por qué debemos mirar al sureste de Asia? Una serie de mesas redondas donde vamos a tener la visión de los 5 máximos representantes de varios países de la ASEAN. So, welcome. We are very happy to have you here. We have the ambassador of Indonesia, the ambassador of Vietnam, ambassador of Malaysia, Thailand, and also the consul of the Philippines. So we are very happy. We know that the ASEAN countries are maybe the ASEAN is the area in the world that is growing faster in the world. So, and it's very unlikely that here in Mexico, many people don't know very much about these countries. So, this event, it's a great opportunity for all of us in Mexico, in Latin America, to know more about this area. So we are here with the president of the Colegio de México, of el Colegio de México, who will give some words, and also some of the ambassadors. So, thank you very much. Please, Silvia.
Muchas gracias, doctor Cervera. Pues buenos días a todas y a todos. Good morning to everybody. It's really a pleasure to welcome you to El Colegio de México. And I would like to start by greeting our very distinguished guests here today, the Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia in Mexico, Mr. Cosmas Cepitriprakoso Wartono. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Thank you. Who is also president of the Committee of the ASEAN in Mexico City. And well, also I would like to express our condolences for the recent earthquake in Indonesia and to all the people at Indonesia. I would also like to greet the Ambassador of Malaysia in Mexico, Mr. Muzaffar Shah Mustafa. I don't know how to translate excelentísimo embajador. His Honored Ambassador of Thailand in Mexico, Mr. Paisan Rupanishki. And also the Ambassador of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam in Mexico, Mr. Nguyen Hoan Nam. And I would also like to greet the encargado de negocios, the business or the economic affairs at the Embassy and the Delegation of Philippines in Mexico, Mr. John Reyes Gomapos. And of course, I would like to greet the Director of the Center for African and Asian Studies at El Colegio de México, Dr. José Antonio Cervera. Well, it's really a privilege to have here today at El Colegio de México such distinguished representatives of the ASEAN, particularly within the framework of this date, the 55th anniversary of this intergovernmental organization founded in 1967. At El Colegio de México, I think we have been pioneers in terms of studying Southeast Asia from Latin America and trying to bridge the understanding of the region within the whole Latin America, a region, Southeast Asia, a region that is defined by its diversity, its richness, with almost 700 million inhabitants, all living, interacting every day in a diversity of governments, cultures, and religions. And I think that is particularly the dynamism of the region which has attracted the interest of our academic community and the Center for African and Asian Studies. The Center for African and Asian Studies has been particularly focused on understanding the processes that have formed Southeast Asia, and we are very interested in keeping this approach and trying to create these bridges between Mexico and Southeast Asia. That's the reason that we consider this event, this virtual hybrid event, because we have in-presence and we have also people connected through the internet. That's the reason we were very interested in having this space, and within, again, the 55th anniversary of ASEAN, as a space to discuss and analyze economic, sociocultural, political aspects, security aspects, and with the presence of the representatives of Asians, but also with the presence of researchers and students here at El Colegio de México, and connected also from other institutions in Mexico and in Latin America. I would like to say that El Colegio de México has been very committed since the creation of the Center for African and Asian Studies to have both this part of research and creating a continuous link with the region of Southeast Asia in this particular case, but also a commitment to form new specialists from Mexico and Latin America that can keep on bridging and widening the spaces between Southeast Asia and Latin America. And I would like, just as final remarks, to thank the Committee of ASEAN in Mexico City, that is formed by the ambassadors of Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam, and the General Consul of Philippines for their interests and for their interest in participating and collaborating with the Center of African and Asian Studies and El Colegio de México in the organization of this event. And also, I would like to acknowledge my colleagues from the Center of African and Asian Studies for the initiative, in particular, Efi Siregar, and the director, Jose Antonio Cervera, who have supported this activity and have taken all the time to organize it from El Colegio de México. Also, again, I would like to welcome scholars and students that are here or that are connected through our platforms to the event. I am sure that it will be I've seen the program, and I'm sure that it's going to be a very fruitful discussion and a very wide-opening, eye-opening discussion in the round tables that will follow along this day. Thank you very much, and again, welcome to El Colegio de México.
Thank you very much, Silvia. We are very honored in the Center of Asian and African Studies to have you here in this important event for us. So I will give now the word to the Excelentísimo, I don't know, to the Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia, Cepi Triprakoso Wartono, sorry, and he's also the president of the Committee of ASEAN in Mexico City. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Jose Antonio Herrera Jimenez, President of the Colegio de Mexico, Dr. Silvia Elena Giorguli Saucedo, distinguished speakers and moderators, my dear colleagues, Ambassador of Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and Consul General of the Philippines, student of the Colegio de Mexico, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and welcome to the public lecture on ASEAN, the Association of the Southeast Asian Nation, in commemoration of the 55th anniversary of ASEAN. It is great pleasure and honor for me and my colleagues from ASEAN member states to come to the Colegio de Mexico to share with you update on ASEAN. Although Southeast Asia is located quite far from Mexico, it is important that we maintain close engagement with each other. It is a fast-growing and dynamic region in the global world. Therefore, I hope this public lecture could provide a better understanding on the significance of ASEAN and how Mexico and ASEAN could further pursue closer partnership. Ladies and gentlemen, ASEAN, which stands for ASEAN of the Southeast Asian nation, comprises of the 10 member states in Mexico City. There are 5 countries which established its embassy, namely Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, the Philippines, and Vietnam. Each of us has close diplomatic relations with Mexico. Even Indonesia had started our relations since 1950s. And together as ASEAN, we work with Mexican government and communities conducting various events to raise ASEAN awareness in Mexico. Today, thanks to the Center of Asian African Studies of the Colegio de México, we have a great opportunity in this prestigious institution to introduce ASEAN more to the students of the Colegio de México, to the future leaders of Mexico. Ladies and gentlemen, ASEAN has been established in 1967, and since that year, 2000, we have set an ASEAN Community Vision 2025 to establish a united and stable community with 3 main pillars: political, security, economic, and social cultures. For the last 2 years, the global world, including ASEAN, was deeply impacted by the COVID-19. The pandemic hampered economic recovery and pushed countries to recession. Ongoing conflicts and tension, as well as rivalries, also occurred in some parts of the world, causing multidimensional crisis. During the pandemic, ASEAN has strived to work together in providing a better and stable condition for the political and economic, social environment. We took collective effort by establishing a COVID-19 ASEAN Response Fund and utilized it to procure vaccine to ASEAN people. ASEAN Regional Reserve of Medical Supply for Public Health Emergencies. ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework, or we call ACRF, and its implementation plan, ASEAN Center for Public Health Emergency and Emerging Disease, and mobilizing essential health resources to those in need. ASEAN also worked in maintaining the essential movement of people, goods, and supply chain connectivity to ensure the continued flow of trade and investment and rebuild tourism industry. Among others, we adopt ASEAN Travel Corridor Arrangement Framework, established the post-COVID-19 recovery plan for tourism and plan of action and strengthening ASEAN economic cooperation and supply chain connectivity in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We emphasize the importance of addressing and mitigating the impact of emerging challenges arising from the pandemic and the current geopolitical tension, such as food security and energy resiliency, to strengthen economic recovery and energy resilience. Indeed, for more than 12 decades, ASEAN has become a driving force for peace, stability, and prosperity in the region. ASEAN is the 5th largest economy in the world, with the total GDP of the 3.0 trillion in 2020, and projected to have an economic growth higher than the world in 2022 and 2023. ASEAN is also a growing society, with the 3rd largest population in the world, with a vibrant economy and dynamic communities. It is time for ASEAN to lead the way to the fastest growing economy. In order to achieve the goal, ASEAN worked together with dialogue and external partners. Among others, ASEAN established a cooperation with the Pacific Alliance since 2016 to improve the economic trade ties between the 2 blocs and explore greater cooperation through the development of a new ASEAN Pacific Alliance work plan 2021-2025. It is important that we forge a stronger link to promote relations and develop initiatives that are of our mutual interests. 2 weeks ago, we had the 41st ASEAN Summit, which was attended by ASEAN leaders and ASEAN dialogue partners. And the end of the summit, Cambodia, as the chair of the ASEAN this year, handed over the chairmanship to Indonesia. Therefore, Indonesia now assumes the chairmanship of ASEAN until the end of 2023 with the theme ASEAN Matters, Epicentrum of the Growth. As the founding of ASEAN, Indonesia always strived for the betterment of ASEAN, among others by contributing to regional stability and prosperity. Indonesia will continue to work hard to maintain a united and stable region, to promote a more prosperous ASEAN community, to strengthen ASEAN institutional capacity and effectiveness in addressing future challenges, and to enhance regional resiliences for the benefit of the people. Ladies and gentlemen, through today's public lecture, we will learn more about ASEAN, effort in maintaining peace and stability, increasing economic growth, ensuring welfare of its people, including health, mobility of the people through safe and orderly migration, youth, cultures, and arts. And most importantly, from these various topics, I hope we will learn how our two regions could have mutual understanding and force for closer interaction. Together, side by side, let's work together for the benefit for our both regions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Chepi Triprakoso Wartono, for your kind words. Well, this is a kind of diplomatic event, but it's mainly an academic event. We will discuss in two roundtables about politics, security, economics, society, and culture in Southeast Asia. And I would like also to thank the ambassadors who are here, but also to the students and professors who are here with us. And especially I would like to thank Effie Siregar. She's the main organizer of this event. You should be here with us. So thank you very much. Thank you. Well, I think now in the program, the committee of ASEAN in Mexico City will give something to our president, right? We will have a photograph, I think. Maybe we should stand.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
For the directors, I would like to present one of the Indonesian traditional music instrument. Thank you very much.
So should we switch now for the first?
Yes, I think we have to have a photograph. Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Maybe all together, or I don't know.
Now I can give you my photo. Thank you. Thank you.
front? Yes. Downstairs? We should have a screen there, but we don't have. So, we will have 3 minutes to change the persons and to begin the first roundtable. Thank you very much. We have a very interesting program, and we don't have so much time, so we will begin our first roundtable, Asuntos políticos de seguridad y económicos en el sureste de Asia. Politics, security and economics in Southeast Asia. I would like to introduce our first speaker, in Spanish, el embajador de la República de Vietnam, Nguyen Hoan Nam, embajador extraordinario y plenipotenciario de la República Socialista de Vietnam para México, concurrente en Belice, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras y Panamá. Se graduó de la Academia Diplomática de Vietnam y ahí mismo obtuvo el grado de maestría en Relaciones Internacionales. Please. Thank you.
Good morning. Yes, it is a great pleasure for me to be here today. And I was assigned by the chair of ASEAN, Ambassador Chippy, and also the director for Asia and African Studies to talk about ASEAN peace and stability in the region. So this is a very big topic. And we have only 10 minutes. So I will try to give you some ideas. First, about how ASEAN can maintain peace and stability in the region. So just very, very brief. So my presentation, I don't know how to press here. Next, how can I? Yes, I will talk about first 3 points, ASEAN profile, and ASEAN, the second point is ASEAN and 50 years of peace, stability, and development. And the third point is about the challenges ASEAN is facing now. Of course, relating to peace and security, because other topics, economics and control, social control, our colleagues will mention, we'll talk about later. So first, concerning ASEAN profile, all these aspects relating to peace and security. You know that for ASEAN, we have now 10 member states. And you know very well that at the recent meeting in Cambodia, ASEAN leaders agreed in principle to admit East Timor to become the 11th member of this organization. So we hope that the admission will be happening soon in the time to come. And you know, the ASEAN, we have 10 member countries, we have, and for the 5 members, first founded this organization was Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and what else? Which country else? Not Brunei. And then the Philippines. And in 1984, Brunei became the member. 1995, Vietnam. 1997, Myanmar and Laos. And 1999, Cambodia. And now we have 10 member countries. And the population, we can see that we have about 670 million. Demographic, you can see that the ASEAN population or society is a young society. Of course, we are facing the aging problem nowadays also. So over 50% of ASEAN population is in the age from 20 to 54. And this is this is also, it also shows the abandoned labor force in ASEAN countries also. So the land area, we have this land area and GDP. The GDP is 2.3 trillion. But this figure, I don't think it is the, maybe it changed because I read somewhere else, according to some other sources, 3.8, 3.6. So maybe this is the number according to the, because of the COVID time, it come down to 2.3 trillion. And ASEAN will become the fourth economy in the world by 2030. Thank you. This is the picture. We can see that of the ASEAN countries in Southeast Asia with the flags, with the geography, and also the ASEAN logo. Next, please. So, you know that ASEAN is a very diverse region. But the question is that ASEAN is diverse, but we could maintain peace and stability over the last 55 years. Why ASEAN can maintain peace and stability over the last 55 years? Even it is a diverse region. You see that we have 10 countries and we have different political systems. Vietnam has different political system compared to other countries. Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia. And the structure in the system, political system, also different. And level economic development also different level. We have a higher level, you know, that's Singapore, for example, and some other country, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines, and Vietnam now also emerging, and other countries. Brunei, of course, at also a high level. And also the economic development level is also very different. And ASEAN, we can see that the language, religion, culture, different. We have different religions. And Thailand, Buddhism, Malaysia, and Indonesia, and Malaysia, people follow mainly, of course, Muslim. In each country, we have also different religions, diverse religions in each country, and culture, of course, different. So next, please. So with that, ASEAN is very different. ASEAN countries are very different in political system, in culture, in religion, and in everything. But why we can maintain peace and stability? You know that over the last 55 years, ASEAN is considered as one of the most successful organizations in the world. We have also the EU and other organizations, but ASEAN is considered a successful organization because of it could maintain peace and stability in the region for the 55 years. And also because of the prosperity, because of economic development. We cannot maintain peace and stability. I mean that we cannot develop the countries, develop the economy. It cannot prosper us if we cannot maintain peace and stability. So because we have this organization, the ASEAN organization, it was established in, as you know, that in 8 August 1967, and the objectives of ASEAN, we have many objectives, but the key is for the, I think like many other organizations who have the same objectives, is to develop to make a society prosperous, and also to maintain peace and stability, and to make the people happy. And so that's the key purpose of all organizations. And for ASEAN, we can see that the objective is to accelerate economic growth, social progress, and cultural development in the region, and to promote regional peace and stability through abiding respect for justice, and so on and so forth. So this is the objectives of the ASEAN organization. So next, please. Next, please. Yes, so ASEAN community. So by 2015, we have ASEAN community with 3 pillars. I think my colleague JP also mentioned in his speech that we have ASEAN political security community, ASEAN economic community, and ASEAN social cultural community. So I will talk about ASEAN political community because my colleagues will talk about economic community and socio-economic community later. Next, please. So what are the wish, the aspiration of ASEAN to make sure that the political security pillar is a successful one. So we can see that these are the wish, the aspiration of ASEAN to be into successful political security pillar. So it is a rule-based. Every country have to follow the rule-based, people-oriented, people-centered community. And it must be a resilient community in peaceful, secure, and stable region. And also, ASEAN must play the role as the central role for peace and stability in the region. And ASEAN must show its dynamism and must be an outward-looking region. We have to follow all these guidelines, principles, if we want to maintain peace and stability. And we did so. We have done so far. That's why we could maintain peace and stability in the region so far. And also, in order to do so, we have to strengthen our capacity, institutional capacity, and the presence. So, and we are doing so. We are trying to strengthen our capacity in ASEAN countries. So this is the aspiration of ASEAN in the organization, in the political security pillar. Next, please. Yes, in order to develop, in order to maintain peace and stability, then ASEAN have to be an organization that should develop outward-looking. Means we develop relationship with countries in the region and all over the world. We have adopted a good foreign policy, and we want to be a global player player. And you know that nowadays, ASEAN, we have 96 non-ASEAN member states ambassadors to ASEAN. 96 non-ASEAN member states ambassadors to ASEAN. In Jakarta, the secretariat, the headquarters of ASEAN is in Jakarta. And we have now the 11 ASEAN ambassadors, means permanent direct ambassadors to ASEAN. In addition, we have other ambassadors accredited to ASEAN also in Jakarta. And now we have 96 non-ASEAN member states ambassadors to ASEAN. And we have 50 ASEAN committees in third countries. You know that in foreign countries, we have ASEAN committee. Like in Mexico, we have ASEAN committee here in Mexico City. And we have five ASEAN ambassadors here as a committee in Mexico City. So we work together, we have a joint plan to promote ASEAN. We have a joint plan to develop relationship between ASEAN and Mexico. And we have our own program here to strengthen relationship between ASEAN and Mexico also. And we also expand ASEAN external engagement. I will talk about this in the next speech. And we have observer status in the UN. We also have a dialogue, regular dialogue with ASEAN, with UN agencies. Sometimes in the UN, sometimes in Jakarta or other places. Next, please. And regional architecture. So to maintain peace and stability and strengthen peace and stability in the region, we also have the mechanisms, ASEAN +1. Means now ASEAN +1, we have regular dialogue, and we have a regular, annually meeting. ASEAN with each country, we have here, as I remember, 11 dialogue partners and counterpart and partner like countries and counterpart like EU is one of them. ASEAN +3, we have a meeting, regular meeting with ASEAN +3. Like +3 here with Japan, with China, with Korea. We have a regular meeting with them. And we have an ASEAN Regional Forum also. This is the specific region to discuss about peace and stability, to build trust to have preventive to talk about preventive diplomacy. And we also have ASEAN Minister plus Minister Defense Minister meeting plus. Means ASEAN Defense Minister meeting with plus means the dialogue partner countries like China, US, Japan, Australia, and some others, 8 other countries. And we have also East Asia Summit, means the summit of the East Asian vision. So this in this mechanism, in these meetings, we discuss a lot of things, like including the peace and security issue for the region. And we also adopted some documents in order to maintain peace and stability in the regions. And all these mechanisms, ASEAN must play a central role. The central role here is that it must serve the ASEAN principle. So this is the visional architecture I would like to mention to you. Next, please. Yes. So just briefly about the how, why, and how ASEAN maintain peace and stability, and how ASEAN contribution to peace and stability. It is through our charter, it is through our principle, it is through our cooperation with external partners, it is through our institution strengthening. So that's why over the last 55 years, ASEAN could maintain peace, stability in the region, and ASEAN could strengthen our relations with other countries to help to maintain peace and stability, not only in ASEAN countries, but also in the Asia-Pacific region. And the challenge is, you know very well that we have traditional and non-traditional issues now. And, you know, according to the time, then the challenges we are facing are different. For ASEAN, that we have also the issue that maritime security issue. This is a South China Sea issue. We are facing this problem. And we are talking, we are dialoguing, and you know very well that the policy or the ASEAN is to resolve the matter through peaceful dialogue, through abiding by the law, by the UN Charter, and the UNCLOS 82. And we have a non-traditional issues also ASEAN are now facing, and other countries in the region also. And nowadays, you can see that many non-traditional issues, and it is these issues are emerging. But nowadays, you can see the disease, COVID, for example. This is one of the issues we are facing. And food security also is a problem we are facing nowadays. And many other country issues like terrorism, our region and your region also is are facing drug trafficking in human, drug and trafficking, and so on and so forth. So I think that this, ASEAN is facing, the region is facing, the world is facing, and the Latin American countries are also facing all these issues. So we hope that we could work together in the time to come. And I think that, for example, the university or the Center of Asian and African Studies, and we could work together with our MC to promote dialogue, to share experience, to exchange the visits, to share experience, so that we could help to contribute to peace and stability in our region and also in the American region and the world over. So I want to finish my presentation here. I hope that you could have an idea about ASEAN and how ASEAN maintaining peace and stability. And thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Nguyen Huan Nam, for your great introduction to ASEAN and to ASEAN contribution to peace and stability in the region. Now I would like to introduce Professor Christopher Landry from el Colegio de México, who will speak about ASEAN and the region, challenges moving forward. El profesor Chris Landry es profesor investigador del Centro de Estudios de Asia y África del Colegio de México, doctor en Ciencias Políticas por la Universidad Estatal de Arizona. Su trabajo se centra en el este de Indonesia y Timor-Leste. Es coautor de un premiado libro sobre rumores y terrorismo y autor y coautor de varios capítulos de libros y artículos publicados en diferentes revistas académicas. Adelante, profesor Londri.
Gracias. First, I'd like to say hello and welcome to our distinguished guests on this auspicious anniversary. Selamat po, kom un, terima kasih, and kapkun krap for coming. I'll keep my comments mercifully brief. When we first started discussing this event, I thought I would simply say a few words about contemporary ASEAN and its future, and that's what I'll do in a few minutes. But perhaps the biggest thing on my mind, and perhaps some others, is the announcement at the ASEAN Summit earlier this month that the organization had agreed in principle to granting Timor-Leste membership. So, yes. Earlier this year, José Ramos Horta, former prime minister and former and now current president of the small nation, said that it seems as if to reach ASEAN, you have to fulfill all of the criteria to enter heaven. And then the next step is ASEAN. Perhaps heaven can wait, and ASEAN will come first under the leadership of Indonesia next year. I was reminded of an article that I wrote way back in 2000, soon after the referendum, that examined the pros and cons of Timorese membership in ASEAN. I argued that, of course, it made sense for the Timorese, but also the neighborhood. Timor-Leste created some friction for ASEAN prior to and just after the vote in 1999, but time apparently heals all wounds. Or perhaps we should say, in the ASEAN context, it takes some time to build consensus. Regardless, Timor-Leste's inclusion will represent a sort of completion of the unification of the region. Although it may be a little premature, come on, Singapore, I still feel congratulations are in order. Evolving from earlier attempts, such as the ASA and Mafelindo, ASEAN has grown and evolved over the years. Reflecting its flexibility, it is at times more than a political union and a security regime, and at times less. At times more than an economic union, and at times less. Flexibility, adaptability, and consensus reflect the ASEAN way, enabling the organization to evolve and adapt to new circumstances and issues. There remain, of course, traditional economic and security issues faced by ASEAN. China's growth and territorial assertions remain on the radar for most ASEAN states, such as those with claims to the Spratlys or the Paracels. Because consensus is sometimes hard to build, China engages in bilateral talks over some of these issues, or sometimes refuses to talk at all. This will continue to be an issue in the foreseeable future, although Chinese construction reflects the thinking that possession is 9/10 of the law. China also continues to engage economically in the region, perhaps thinking the way to ASEAN's heart is through the wallet. The West, of course, is attempting to balance. The 2017 revival of the Quadriennial Security Dialogue, also known as the Quad, which features Australia, Japan, India, and the United States, is an explicit attempt to counter China's increasing assertiveness in the South China Sea. Although some ASEAN countries have been invited to dialogue, such as Vietnam, it strikes me as a little unusual that on the one hand you have the Quad, on the other China, but neither seem to be particularly concerned about the inclusion of some of the ASEAN states most affected by these strategic calculations in the neighborhood, or with ASEAN as a whole, for that matter. Part of this reflects, I think, the desire not to have to choose sides, and part of it, of course, reflects the fact that with differing ideas about the relationships individuals' countries have with China, the United States, the West, it is difficult to find that ASEAN consensus. After more than 5 years with no ambassador to ASEAN, the United States has finally filled that position. So perhaps that is a step in the right direction towards inclusive dialogue. But in thinking about non-traditional approaches to security issues, there are several. Transboundary fishing, for example, remains a hot-button issue in the region. Food security is another, especially with the shifts brought about by climate change. This will continue to be an area of interest and study for the region, including one of our master's students, Carla Karina Pinto Gutierrez. Other non-traditional security threats include transboundary pollution, something that ASEAN states are also long familiar with. Associated with this is, of course, deforestation. Deforestation leads not only to topsoil erosion, but to the loss of habitat and biodiversity. Of course, one must recognize the right of states to develop, but one would also hope that science and the ability to conduct critical research will be respected in the name of preserving an inhabitable and biodiverse region. Climatic change will also lead to disruptions of populations in archipelagic places such as Indonesia, Timor-Leste, the Philippines, but also, of course, any littoral states and the neighbors of ASEAN, especially Bangladesh. Climate refugees will be a reality in the future, adding to the already stressed flows of voluntary and involuntary migrants in the region, such as those who have been fleeing Myanmar. Internal politics of member states continue to change, especially and sometimes in surprising ways, and one always hopes for peaceful solutions to these kinds of problems. ASEAN has proved to be flexible, if not always decisive, but it is this flexibility that holds the organization together. Some of the issues I mentioned will, I imagine, be coming to the fore in coming years. I tend to be an optimistic, glass half full kind of person, and so despite the difficulties involved in these areas, I think there is a way to find solutions. In this case, it will be the ASEAN way. Through bipolarity, unipolarity, whatever polarity we're experiencing now and whatever polarity will come in the future, ASEAN endures as an important regional institution in the global system. I wish to extend my congratulations to the member states of ASEAN for the lasting cooperation for the past 55 years and counting. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Laundrie. It's my pleasure to introduce now to the Ambassador of Indonesia, Cepi Triprakoso Wartono. El Cepi Triprakono Wartono es el embajador extraordinario y plenipotenciario de la República de Indonesia para México, concurrente en Belice, El Salvador y Guatemala. Es licenciado en Economía por la Universidad Abierta de Indonesia y en Administración de Empresas por la Universidad Europea en Amberes, Bélgica, en 2002. Please.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, everyone. Well, buenos dias, good morning. Today I will give a short presentation about the economic pillar of ASEAN. This is ASEAN Economic Community, or we call RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, as the biggest FTA in the world. Then this initiated by ASEAN. Well, ASEAN Economic Community, or AEC, like what my colleagues said, is an economic integration to create the free movement of the goods, services, and investment, as well as a freer flow of capital, skills, and among ASEAN member states. The history of AEC can be tracked as far as ASEAN Free Trade Area, or we called AFTA at the time. It was started in 1992. Since then, efforts were intensive to broaden the region's economic potential. ASEAN delivered several plans and visions, including the declaration of the Second ASEAN Concord in 2003. Namely political, security, economic, and social cultures. In 2007, AEC Blueprint make it 2015 and continue 2015. Now we have an AEC Blueprint 2015. The blueprint describes of 5 main characteristics. First is a highly integrated and cohesive economy. And the second one is a competitive, innovative, and dynamic ASEAN. And third, enhance connectivity, sectoral, and cooperation. Fourth, a resilient, inclusive, people-oriented, and people-centered region. And fifth is a global ASEAN. So, but if talking about this, we describe of the 5, you may see the next slide, please. This is the area of the highly integrated cohesive economy. There is a trade in goods, there is a trade in services, investment, environment, and everything, including financial integration. If we're talking about a competitive, innovative, and dynamic ASEAN, they stated consumer protection, strengthening IPR cooperation, and etc., including also the taxation cooperation. If we're talking about enhanced connectivity and sectoral cooperation, they stated transport, ICT, e-commerce, energy. So we're thinking is in the futures. If we're talking about the resilient, inclusive, people-oriented, we're talking about the MSMEs, strengthen the role of the private sectors, public-private partnership, and we're talking about a global ASEAN. We're talking about a strategic approach toward external economic relation, including enhanced economic partnership with the non-FTA DPS, engage with regional and global partners, support to the multilateral trading system, engagement with the regional and global institution. So this is the area that we call an AEC. To support this vision, ASEAN has signed several agreements to eliminate the tariff in goods, services, investment, and skill, such as ATIGA, ASEAN Trades in Goods Agreement. Next slide. Second ASEAN Framework Agreement on Services, we call AFAS, or ASEAN Comprehensive Investment Agreement, we call ASEA. Mutual Recognition Arrangement and Services, we call MRA. And last but not least, Agreement of Movement Natural Persons, we call AAMNP. Here you can see how broad the deep cooperation, the economic pillars of the ASEAN. Since 2015, the review also shows how ASEAN region has continued GDP growth. Shorter time, the start of business, increasing digital connectivity, and becoming more financially inclusive. All this achievement might be attributed to the ASEAN economic community. Our effort to economic integration did not stop the ASEAN region. We believe in the region surrounded by the big players. We need to cooperate economically with one another. Therefore, we create Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or in short, RCEP. It is trade agreement consists of 10 ASEAN member states as well as 5 partners: China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. ASEAN itself already a big region. Imagine a free trade combining ASEAN with 2 of the biggest economies, China and Japan, and 3 other developed countries. In this biggest FTA in the world, because the RCEP cover around 30% population of the world GDP, as well as the 30% global investment, as well as around 27% of the global trade. This is such an ambitious project to have, creating a free trade agreement of almost of a third of the world economics. This is why it took more than a decade to create RCEP. This is the roadmap of the RCEP. When it was started back in 2011 when Indonesia introduced the concept of RCEP during the 19th ASEAN Summit in Bali, Indonesia. The concept got positive response from the ASEAN leaders. Thus, the following years, ASEAN launched the negotiating of the RCEP. Then the first negotiating started on May 2013. And the negotiation continued for 7 years until July 2020. So it will take some time. We conducted 31 rounds of negotiation, 3 of which was conducted virtually. In addition, we also had 3 RCEP leaders summit in between the negotiation. And finally, we concluded the negotiation and signed the agreement on November 15, 2020 during the pandemic, also by virtually. After the signing, each party needs to ratify the agreement. the first one being Singapore on April 2021. As of now, RCEP has been ratified by all members except for the Philippines and Myanmar. Indonesia has just ratified the agreement rather recently, November 3rd this year. So RCEP has entered into force 13 countries since the year, meaning the agreement is now has the benefit the parties. Actually, India was also joined in the RCEP, but last minute, India was out of this negotiation. But we're still trying to bring India to come in. So if India will be joined the RCEP, so I think two-thirds of the world population are in the Southeast, are in the Asia. Now, what is the benefit of joining? That's why it looks more than a decade to create the RCEP. It started 2011, and the first now the benefit of joining RCEP with different sizes of the economics. It is varies between member states, but in general, it cut trade tariff significantly. RCEP set to eliminate around 91% of tariff on goods. Many of the tariff cuts will occur immediately, while others will be gradually introduced over a span of up to 20 years to accommodate all the members. So RCEP will also standardize trade framework. As you may know, export-import rules are often complicated. With RCEP, we now have one framework to trade between member states. It brings us to third benefit, to increase opportunity for trade, services, investment. Clear rules and the tariff cuts will encourage business people in the region to do more transaction. We believe RCEP will incentivize regional value chain, meaning it will be enable producers and service providers in one country to experience the benefit of different countries, such as the access of cheaper raw materials or expand market opportunities, transfer of skill and technology for efficient line of production. In this sense, RCEP will also help to increase trust the potential partner, not only between the members, but also to non-members seeing RCEP as a potential market to do business with. Last but not least, RCEP will certainly help to accelerate economic recovery, especially after the pandemic and the war currently happening. RCEP is a comprehensive modern agreement with the purpose to be a mutual beneficial. Comprehensive means that it covers not only the diverse economy on the region, but also the substances of the agreement itself. The agreement comprises of the 20 chapters, including trade in goods, services, investment, intellectual property, e-commerce, SMEs, economic and technical cooperation, and more. Reflecting the cooperation we envision in ASEAN Economic Community, the extension chapter show how broad of the deep RCEP. This is why we need more than a decade and 31 negotiation round of the negotiation. RCEP is a modern agreement because it builds on existing ASEAN Plus One FTA. Before RCEP, ASEAN has separate free trade agreement with China, with Japan, with South Korea, with Australia, and New Zealand. Now RCEP reflects the agreement and account the emerging realities of e-commerce, regional value, potential of SMEs, which might not yet cover in the previous FTA. Lastly, RCEP mutual beneficial. It has different provision catered so the diverse level of the development can all benefit. In order to achieve greater prosperity and stability, ASEAN envision integrated economy. The vision is to be achieved through AEC and RCEP, with comprehensive measurement and the take into account the global dynamic. We are working to realize that ASEAN Economic Community by 2025, and looking the report, we are optimistic ASEAN will fully implement the blueprint of 2025. Meanwhile, as for RCEP, while waiting for several states to ratify the agreement. We will monitor the implementation of the agreement and possible expansion. Thank you very much. Well, we hopefully that ASEAN and with RCEP, we can also have an cooperation with the Pacific Alliance in the futures, especially with this region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Chepi Triprakoso Wartono, for this great introduction to economics and economic organizations in ASEAN, particularly the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. And now I will introduce Muzaffar Shah Mustafa, the Ambassador of Malaysia. Muzaffar Shah Mustafa es embajador extraordinario y plenipotenciario de Malasia para México, concurrente en Belice, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala y Honduras. Es licenciado en la ley islámica, la Sharia, y maestro en integración regional por la Universidad de Malaysia, y obtuvo el certificado de servicio exterior por la Universidad de Oxford en el Reino Unido. Please.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, I would like to thank Colegio de México for having us today. And the topic that is given to me is on ASEAN and Pacific Alliance. I would try to discuss this subject and see how we can move forward in terms of our collaboration between our two regions. So my presentation today would cover a few topics that I will cover. First, on the overview of the little bit of Pacific Alliance, and I will also touch on the engagement so far between the Pacific Alliance and also ASEAN. And I would also try to look into the potential between the cooperation between Pacific Alliance and also ASEAN, using a SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And in the end, I would try to make a conclusion. As an overview, this is what is Pacific Alliance all about. It was initiated in 2011. I just would like to highlight two main key words here. That is the integrating economies and also seeking expanded trade with Asia Pacific. This was created in 2011, I believe, after the financial crisis in 2008, that there is a need for this region to look and to have a greater integration in terms of the economic integration, and also in terms of importance of promoting trade liberalization in promoting economic growth. It consists of Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru. And as comparison to ASEAN, ASEAN is a more, I think I'll press the wrong button. Okay. Association of Southeast Asian Nations, as what has been explained by my colleague previously, is more encompassing association of 10 member countries that promotes intergovernmental cooperation that facilitates not only political but also economy, security, military, educational, and socio-cultural integration between its members. It is very much an intergovernmental association. It's not a supranational association as what EU is. But we are moving we are moving towards a closer integration for our region in terms of political, economy, and socio-cultural. After the establishment of Asia-Pacific Alliance, this is a very promising union of the member states. It has attracted 61 observer members or observer states. That is including a few of them of ASEAN countries such as Indonesia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. And one of the most, I believe, after a decade of existence, a landmark FTA has been concluded with Singapore in 2021. I think this is the first FTA that has been concluded by Pacific Alliance with its observer states, which give Singapore as the first associated state of the Pacific Alliance in 2021. As far as Pacific Alliance and ASEAN, after its establishment in 2011, there's already initiative to create some kind of alliance between Pacific Alliance and ASEAN in 2011, but it only materialized 3 years after that, in 2014, with the ministerial meeting of ASEAN and Pacific Alliance in conjunction with the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Since then, the ASEAN and Pacific Alliance ministerial meeting has been held at the sidelines of UNGA every year. Other than that, ASEAN and Pacific Alliance has also concluded ASEAN Pacific Alliance Framework for Cooperation in 2016, which adopted 4 pillars in terms of areas of cooperation between ASEAN and also Pacific Alliance, namely economic cooperation, education and people-to-people contact, science, technology and innovation, and sustainable development. In realizing this framework for cooperation, ASEAN and Pacific Alliance has adopted 2 work plans, namely in work plan for 2017-2020, and also work plan for 2021 to 2025. Under this work plan, 5 pillars has been identified for cooperation between ASEAN and also Pacific Alliance, namely economic cooperation, education and culture, science, technology and innovation, and smart cities, environment and sustainable development, and post-pandemic recovery. This is the latest work plan for 2021 to 2025. There has been programs and activities that has been planned under this work plan, for example, like in organizing investment and trade activities, promotion and cooperation in areas such as digital economy, e-commerce, cybersecurity, and the small and medium enterprises. I go on the Asia-Pacific, ASEAN and Pacific Alliance in terms of its potential. First, I would go on the strength of the both association. You can see from the economic indicators that I think there's some missing. Huh? Okay, yeah. This strength. You can see from the economic indicators moving. Okay, in terms of the global GDP, the total GDP between the two associations, for example, like ASEAN, in 2021, the total GDP of ASEAN amounted to 3.3 trillion, and it's not far for Pacific Alliance, where in 2020, the total GDP was 2.8 trillion, and it represents 35% of the GDP for the Latin American and Caribbean economies, and it also represents as 8th largest economy globally. In terms of population, there's a lot of potential in terms of market. That for ASEAN, it offers 661 million total population. And for Pacific Alliance, about 234.1 million population. In terms of intra-trade, intra-ASEAN trade is amounted to 21.2% in 2020, but is very much less for Pacific Alliance. It is less than 5% in 2019. Both associations also recorded a positive growth after the pandemic. In 2021, for ASEAN, we recorded 3.4% of growth, and for Pacific Alliance, around 2.5%. It's mostly above average of the Latin American growth. In terms of the weaknesses, of course, I mean, because of the distance between our two regions, there's a challenge for both business community, for both region to promote a closer collaboration between our two regions. And also for Pacific Alliance, currently the system that a state would assume a pro-tempore chairmanship for a year. As compared to ASEAN, we have a permanent secretary that monitors ASEAN activities. And also there is no formal agreement at the moment. It's only only a forum between the ministers of our two regions that meet yearly. And there's no dialogue partner status for Pacific Alliance at the moment. And also there's no intention of negotiating of any FTA between our two regions. In terms of the opportunities, there are a lot of areas that we still underexplored that we need to promote more between our two regions. And ASEAN can offer a market diversification and also expansion for businesses from Pacific Alliance. And there's also a growing middle class for ASEAN. As what mentioned by my colleague just now, 50% of our young population is at a productive age. And also most ASEAN economies, they are ranked top 50 in terms of the competitive economies in the world. In terms of threat, of course, I mean, the attractiveness of China and the US market would overshadow the potential between trade between our two blocs. And also, other than that, in terms of the political stability, inequality, and also the domestic issues, which may result in some governments lose focus and would give more focus on domestic issues and would move away from trade openness and trade liberalization. In terms of, as a conclusion, I would just like to conclude my presentation today. I mean, there's a lot of potential and promise that Pacific Alliance can offer as a platform for greater trade and investment relation with ASEAN. As one of the main purpose of its own establishment in terms of the promoting outward focus for trade liberalization and trade links with other regions. So I believe Pacific Alliance should look into ASEAN as a potential trade partners. And also to move forward as the diversification of trade relation for Pacific Alliance members. And then of course there's challenges that we need to overcome, not only in Pacific Alliance region but also in ASEAN, in terms of political and economic development. So with that, I thank you and I end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Muzaffar Shah Mustafa, for this interesting contribution to the relations between ASEAN and the Americas, Latin America, particularly the Pacific Alliance. So we will continue these relations with Latin America, particularly to this country, Mexico, with our next and last speaker in this roundtable. Marisela Reyes es profesora de la Universidad de Colima, es doctora en estudios de Asia y África con especialidad en Sureste de Asia por el Colegio de México. Su línea de investigación es Historia y Sociedad en el Sureste de Asia. Sus temas de investigación son Historia contemporánea del Sureste de Asia, Pobreza rural en Vietnam, Regionalismo, ASEAN y Microcrédito rural en el Sureste de Asia. Adelante.
Institución que me forma en los estudios de una región apasionante. Y en segundo lugar, por también la responsabilidad de compartir mesa con tan distinguidos personalidades, excelentísimos embajadores. Bueno, primero quiero responder a la pregunta ¿por qué debemos mirar al sureste de Asia? Y como internacionalista y parte de esta globalización, lo que sucede en el resto del mundo, en este caso el sureste de Asia, atañe a México, a la política y economía y cultura de México. ¿Por qué? Porque hay en este momento, como ya lo han mencionado, importante foco de atención, porque han sucedido en 2 semanas hechos importantes en el sureste de Asia. ¿Y por qué en este sureste de Asia hay 2 potencias también que cualquier resultado de sus acciones repercutirá en nuestro país? Porque tenemos una frontera, somos vecinos y eso no lo podemos negar. Por otro lado, también ASEAN en este momento está ante los ojos del mundo. Ahora es que es una región dinámica, quizás sea la más dinámica económicamente hablando del mundo, y por supuesto como la Asociación de Naciones del Sureste de Asia también es la asociación más importante en términos de cohesión en Asia-Pacífico. Bueno, el objetivo de esta presentación es ver qué potencialidades tiene México para con ASEAN, para con el sureste de Asia. Aquí sí tenemos que dividir estas dos, no siempre se puede, pero agradezco la presentación de una asociación, pero también esta bilateralidad. Bueno, ¿qué se puede potencializar desde México? Y son 3 áreas en las que voy a comentar. El primero sería el político. Y desde aquel año de 1996 en que México solicita ser socio de diálogo de la ASEAN, han pasado 25 años en los que ha habido muchos esfuerzos, por supuesto, pero falta todavía por hacer, y incluyendo esta situación de dar seguimiento a el socio de diálogo. A México le corresponde también trabajar sobre ello. Bueno, pero lo que tenemos como potencialidad es que México ha tenido un lazo de hermandad inquebrantable desde que las independencias de estos países que nos acompañan ahora, inquebrantable, que podemos potencializar, incluso ampliar a los otros países, aun cuando son a través sí de las representaciones, pero las concurrencias también nunca han tenido ninguna situación que lamentar. Entonces, esta hermandad habría que potencializarla. También existe otra potencialidad que es a través de los parlamentos. Hay una práctica parlamentaria permanente de México con los grupos de amistad, con cada uno de estos países a través de la Cámara de Diputados. Los más recientes ratificados, que son Indonesia y Malasia, en este año. No es porque los otros no hayan sido ratificados, pero han dado continuidad, como es el caso de Vietnam. Otra potencialidad es la firma de nuevos acuerdos, como el de negociación de acuerdos para la promoción y protección recíproca de las inversiones. Tenemos aquí la figura del APRI, y si bien Singapur ha sido el primero, hay una puerta abierta para la firma para los demás países que nos acompañan. También se sigue el proceso del convenio para evitar la doble imposición con Tailandia, que también podría ampliarse a los demás países, economías, y los acuerdos de asistencia mutua y cooperación aduanera con Vietnam. Entonces, aquí es de lo que yo hablo, las potencialidades para los demás países. También tenemos esta otra potencialidad a través de la paradiplomacia. La que sigue, por favor. En la paradiplomacia encontramos, por ejemplo, aquí hay los acuerdos de hermanamiento con el Estado de México y Vietnam, y los que están aquí enlistados. Algunos otros hermanamientos que son históricos, como el caso de Acapulco y Filipinas, el caso de Barra de Navidad en Cihuatlán y Filipinas también. Y por ahí quiero mencionar trabajos que están comprometidos con los argumentos de que podría también haber hermanamientos entre Manila y Colima. No puedo dejar de mencionar a Colima, por supuesto, pero vaya, esta serie de hermanamientos que hay. Sin embargo, en relación con los hermanamientos que hay de decenas con Estados Unidos y China, es una parte mínima la que tenemos con el sureste de Asia. Hay algunos otros en proceso, por supuesto, el caso de Malasia y Tijuana, el caso de León y Singapur, pero falta, ciudades, por supuesto, afines y de intercambio hay muchas en esta región del mundo con México y con los estados ribereños también y otros de la República Mexicana. De hecho, de los acuerdos interinstitucionales registrados por dependencia y municipio que pueden observar en la Secretaría de Relaciones Exteriores, de los 31 estados de la República Mexicana, solamente está Nuevo León, Veracruz, el Estado de México, Jalisco y Colima con acuerdos institucionales. Son muy pocos en realidad. Luego tenemos el aspecto económico, que es, estas son algunas de las cartas oficiales, memorándums de entendimiento que hay a la fecha. Quiero comentar también que hay otros que no los puse aquí porque son acuerdos que se han hecho entre interinstitucionales en el nivel académico, pero no se ha logrado concretar. Pero en este caso son, bueno, acuerdos de hermanamientos y con algunas universidades también. La que sigue, por favor. Otras, bueno. En el aspecto económico, si bien ha habido avances muy interesantes, ha habido desde también los parlamentos y en el área de economía, hay también la iniciativa privada que ha llevado a cabo estos seminarios virtuales, seminarios de cómo hacer negocios con los países del sureste de Asia, con ASEAN directamente. Vemos, por ejemplo, que la balanza comercial de México con estos países no corresponde a lo que estamos exportando como país. Entonces, sí hay que tomar en cuenta, no es que haga falta, el esfuerzo se ha hecho y es mucho, pero ahí creo que debemos doblegar estos esfuerzos bueno, a través de varias trincheras también. Con frecuencia escuchamos, leemos que estas frases de la política económica agresiva de Vietnam, la política económica agresiva en las inversiones de Tailandia, pero oímos poco sobre las políticas financieras, económicas y de inversiones agresivas de México hacia el sureste de Asia. Entonces sí habría que poner aquí un mayor esfuerzo. Ejemplos también, por ejemplo, Filipinas, que acaba de aceptar pues la participación de un 100% del capital extranjero. Esto es una política agresiva que habría que considerar. Entonces, en el ámbito económico también habría que repensar o fortalecer, sí, lo que es esta competitividad, pero también tenemos una complementariedad, como lo han mencionado antes, sobre estas similitudes económicas que tiene nuestro país con los 6 países, por lo menos, que tiene representación México aquí. Valorar, por supuesto, la Alianza del Pacífico, que desde mi punto de vista, de estos 4 países, creo que Colombia, Perú y Chile han sabido aprovechar o vincularse mucho más fortalecidamente que México. Entonces, aquí también nuestro país tiene que atender este lazo. Y en lo cultural, tenemos, creo que es el área más noble para influir o para ver en cómo se puede, cómo México ha podido lograr avanzar con el sureste de Asia, con ASEAN. Tenemos listado por lo menos de acuerdos institucionales en las universidades. Hay, por supuesto, otros acuerdos en otras universidades, pero lo que les quiero decir es que no todos están operando como debiera. Hay por ahí también un acuerdo institucional entre universidades de Vietnam y la Universidad de Colima que no ha sido rescatado y que, bueno, sí sería necesario tenerlo en cuenta. Hay otros que están aquí en los que quizá los acuerdos más que han tenido mayor estudiantes, en este caso, son el de la Universidad de Thammasat o la Universidad de Chulalongkorn, pero sí nos hace falta fomentar. Pero ¿cómo le podemos hacer aquí? Y es desde la academia, desde también mi punto de vista, que podemos hacer algo más allá. Los estudiantes son la materia prima en la que podemos estar trabajando con ellos para que se interesen por esta región de estudio. Y como algunas reflexiones que tengo, la siguiente, por favor. Bueno, aquí parte de otros memorándums, de otras que son acuerdos interinstitucionales también, que como les digo son pocos, de hecho son estos hasta donde sé los que traigo. La que sigue, por favor. Y bueno, a manera de conclusiones y también de reflexiones, la difusión, hay una frase en ASEAN mismo que me gusta mucho repetir y que es people to people, porque es ahí donde creo que los estudios del sureste de Asia, no solamente como estudios académicos, sino como la forma cultural, la forma gastronómica, la forma del turismo, el interés que se pueda crear desde, sí, las embajadas, pero también desde la academia, es con el pueblo, es directamente con las personas. Hay, por supuesto, todo este trabajo detrás que hacen las embajadas y que pudiera llegar más allá de quizá hasta de las ciudades más importantes. Implementar también esto de los idiomas. Por supuesto, el Colegio de México es pionero en esto de tener idiomas del sureste de Asia, pero también son contados, pues no hay más allá. Sin embargo, poco a poco también hay este interés. Los jóvenes son los que absorben este tipo de cultura y estarían dispuestos totalmente en tomar algún otro idioma. Fomentar desde las aulas los temas de México y la ASEAN. Hay sí artículos, pero no hay las novedades, los resultados que queremos tener para hacer los análisis de esta relación México con ASEAN o bien México con los países miembros. Y por supuesto, también pensar en el largo plazo, que es lo que nos ha faltado un poco, y ver qué es lo que podemos rescatar y pensar en los proyectos a largo plazo, los proyectos de cooperación que también ya se han mencionado aquí. Y aquí me gustaría tomar esta frase que dice, se precisa una forma diferente de pensar sobre el ASEAN y el sureste de Asia, que es, me parece, todavía lo que nos hace falta trabajar como país. Hasta aquí dejo estas reflexiones y muchas gracias. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Marisela. Bueno, unfortunately we are out of time, so we have not time to make some questions, but if you want, after the second round table, we can have some questions, some dialogue with all the speakers of the first and second round table. So we will have 2 minutes to change the table and the speakers. Thank you very much. Well, please don't go. We have still the second half of this interesting meeting. Thank you.
There is understanding paper in Colima, but I think only have one sign from the embassy of Vietnam. But I think we have to rescue this document in many moments because it
¿Dónde están?
Fueron al baño.
Bueno, buenas tardes. Continuamos con la segunda mesa redonda, nuestra discusión. Les invitamos los ponentes a estar aquí en la mesa. En nuestra segunda mesa redonda hablaremos sobre asuntos socioculturales en Sureste de Asia. Invitamos primer ponente, embajador Paisan Rupaniki. Bien. Es embajador extraordinario y plenipotenciario de Tailandia para México. Es licenciado en Ciencias Políticas por la Universidad Chiang Mai, maestro y doctor en Economía por la Universidad Nacional Australiana, Australia. Por favor, Mr. Ambassador.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I wish to thank the College of Mexico for having me on this panel. This is my first time in this prestigious college, and I was told that the Southeast Asian Study Program at this college is probably one and the only in the whole of the Mexico. So I'm very honored. I'm very honored to meet many scholars who are specialized in Southeast Asia. The topic that I'm assigned to cover is about the public health cooperation. Since we are running behind schedule, so I try to keep my presentation short and concise as much as I can. The issue that I will cover is about the overall cooperation on public health in ASEAN, the priority areas, sectoral bodies, the ASEAN COVID-19 response, and the new center that recently established by ASEAN, the ASEAN Center for Public Health Emergencies and Emerging Diseases. So let me begin with the overall. For some of you who have known about ASEAN, you probably know that the ASEAN community is based on 3 pillars. I mean, there are 3 communities within the ASEAN community: is the political security community, socio-cultural communities, and the economic communities. The public health cooperation is under the socio-cultural communities. The socio-cultural communities, the acronym is the ASCC, is guided, the cooperation is guided by the ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community, ASCC Blueprint 2025. It was adopted by the ASEAN leader in 2015. The work is working toward an inclusive community that promotes high quality of life of ASEAN citizens, equitable access to opportunity for all, and to achieve this, the ASCC are cooperating within ASEAN itself and also with our partner on wide-ranging area cooperation, including public health. And let me move on to the next slide, the priority areas. In the areas of the public health, the ASEAN cooperation in this area is guided by the ASEAN post-2015 Health Development Agenda. It's endorsed by the ASEAN senior officials in October 2021. And the ASEAN cooperation, as you see in the slides, cover 4 cluster area cooperations. One is the promotion of healthy lifestyle, responding to all hazards and emerging threats, strengthening health system, access to care, and ensure food safety. This is the 4 main cluster of area cooperation in the area of public health in ASEAN. Next slide, please. sectoral body. If you look at the structural organization that's dealing with this cooperation, you see it's quite a typical structure of cooperation within the three ASEAN communities. Also in the social cultural communities, it have the ASEAN Health Minister meeting. Below that is ASEAN Senior Official meeting, and at the lowest is the ASEAN Health Cluster. Is covered with working group and the expert meeting. And the recent development, that the recent challenges the ASEAN is facing, is, as you know, is the COVID-19. Is probably the global pandemic in our lifetime that we have seen. Yeah, I'm not mistaken, after the Spanish flu. So it's a challenge that every country in the world, including in ASEAN, that have to deal with these challenges. And how the ASEAN respond to these challenges is we set up a fund, a specialized funds that contribute by the ASEAN member and also by our dialogue partner. And it have a total funding of around $30 million. And ASEAN have spent about 10 million in purchasing COVID-19 vaccine for all ASEAN members. This is the development that come after the COVID-19. Apart from setting up the specialized fund, ASEAN also set up a new mechanism for cooperation in dealing with the public health. This is the ASEAN Center for Public Health Emergencies and Emerging Diseases. This is the new mechanism within ASEAN that will help ASEAN to deal with these challenges dealing with the public health emergencies and emerging diseases. And in August 2022, ASEAN has announced the establishment of this center. It will have a secretariat and 3 centers. And one dealing with I think one center will dealing with the protections, detects. Let me have a look. So it have the 3 centers in 3 ASEAN member states and 1 secretariat. This is the new mechanism that ASEAN, after months of negotiation, finally we agreed to set up this a new mechanism. And we hope that this mechanism will help us in ASEAN to deal with the emerging disease from emerging emergencies. So that's all that I want to say. I want to keep it my presentation short and concise. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, embajador. Bien, it's very okay for the time because we don't have enough time to extend the seminar. Siguiente, invitamos a Cónsul General John Reyes. Es Cónsul General de la Embajada de Filipinas en México. Es licenciado en Filosofía y en Leyes. Por favor, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay. The Philippines will present all together now the regional and international cooperation in migrant worker protection. Okay. So the Philippine mandate for migrant worker protection is primarily based on its Philippine Constitution, whereby the Philippines affirms labor as a primary social economic force, shall protect the rights of workers and promote their welfare. It is also cited in its Philippine Foreign Service Act as its 3rd pillar of the Philippine foreign policy, which is the protection of the rights and promotion of the welfare and interest of Filipinos overseas. This led to the encapsulation of such views in Republic Act 8042, which is the creation of the Migrant Workers and Overseas Filipinos Act that provides a structure for the protection of overseas Filipino workers and overseas Filipinos. So the basis for international cooperation on migrant worker protection is premised basically that the protection of migrants is an issue that is international in magnitude and that needs a solution that is international in scope. We have a regional cooperation among ASEAN that provides a stable forum for unified action on common causes such as migrant protection, as well as serving out a test bed for initiatives prior to global rollout. The international commitments we have, number one, Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration. It is the first intergovernmentally negotiated multilateral non-binding instrument that serves as a framework outlining a common approach to international migration in all its dimensions, from pre-deployment phase, on-site phase, and return and reintegration phase of migration. It has 23 objectives and 2 key principles: human rights and sustainable development, and Philippines is one of the GCM champion countries of the world for its stalwart commitment to the objectives of the GCM. Philippines is the first country in the world to include in its law the progressive realization of the 23 objectives of the Global Compact for Migration in the enactment of Republic Act number 11641, which is the creation of its Department of Migrant Workers Act of 2021. Number 2, we have the Bali process on people smuggling, trafficking in persons, and related transnational crimes, otherwise shortly known as the Bali process. The Bali process raises regional awareness of the consequences of people smuggling, trafficking in persons, and related transnational crime. It is a forum for policy dialogue, information sharing, and practical cooperation to help the region address these challenges. The Philippines is a member of the ad hoc group, which is a mechanism that was established in 2009 to comprehensively address situations on a case-by-case basis upon the request of most affected countries, and to revert developments to the wider membership of the Bali process as appropriate. Number 3, we also have international dialogue on migration, which is the principal forum for migration policy dialogue of the International Organization for Migration. 2 sessions are conducted every year with various themes on current and emerging issues. Number 4, we also have the Global Forum on Migration and Development, which is a state-led, informal, and non-binding process which helped shape the global debate on migration and development. It consists of regional consultations and preparatory meetings leading up to the 14th GFMD Summit. The continued participation together with the newly created Department of Migrant Workers. Okay, we also have International Migration Review Forum, which is the primary intergovernmental platform for member states to discuss and share progress on the implementation of all aspects of the Global Compact for Migration, including as it relates to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and with the participation of all relevant stakeholders. The continued participation in local, regional, and global events relating to the GCM as the Philippine government prepares for the next IMRF. The Forum on Strengthening Migrant Protection addressing wage theft against Filipino migrant workers. This forum aims to illustrate the phenomenon of wage theft and its effects on migrant workers and migration processes, especially during the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. It will further explore the experiences of the Philippines, Bangladesh, and Indonesia as countries of origin whose migrant workers have become victims of wage theft. Okay. On regional commitments, we have the Asian Declaration on the Protection and Promotion of the Rights of Migrant Workers. This encapsulates the ideals of ASEAN of building one caring and sharing community by recognizing, protecting, and advancing the rights of migrant workers. We also have the ASEAN Consensus on the protection and promotion of the rights of migrant workers. It operationalizes the ideals espoused in the ASEAN Declaration on the Protection and Promotion of the Rights of Migrant Workers. So with that, we end our presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Muchas gracias, Cónsul General John Reyes. Vamos a continuar porque el tiempo está corriendo. Presentamos ahora la siguiente presentación. Carla Karina Pinto Gutiérrez. Es estudiante de Maestría de Estudios de Asia y África con especialidad en Sureste de Asia del Colegio de México. Es licenciada en Relaciones Internacionales por la Universidad de Colima. Por favor.
Sí. Bueno, buenas tardes. Quiero agradecer la presencia de todos. En esta ocasión yo les voy a hablar un poco de un tema que me apasiona mucho. Considero que yo como joven, uno de los primeros contactos que tuve con la región no fue únicamente por medio de la escuela, sino también por medio de algunas convocatorias que yo veía en internet, en las redes sociales sobre ASEAN, y a mí me llamaba mucho la atención esta política que tenía la organización para atraer jóvenes y que se interesaran más en su región. Entonces, en esta ocasión yo les traigo un poco de esta investigación que hice para saber qué está haciendo la organización ASEAN para desarrollar mucho más el aspecto de las juventudes. Muy bien. De acuerdo con datos oficiales de la ASEAN, los jóvenes comprenden alrededor de 1/3 de la población de los 10 países miembros, aproximadamente un 34% de la población. Dentro de la conceptualización de ASEAN, se toma como juventudes de los 15 a los 35 años. Esto es muy importante remarcarlo porque bajo parámetros de la ONU, por lo general se toma de los 15 a los 24. Entonces estamos viendo cómo la organización considera un rango más amplio sobre juventudes. Se prevé que para el 2038 la población juvenil de la región llegará aproximadamente a 220 millones. Para ASEAN resulta de vital interés preparar y brindar las mejores oportunidades de desarrollo para estas juventudes emergentes. La siguiente, por favor. Muy bien. Dentro de la postura oficial vemos que sí existe una preocupación por parte de la organización. Abro cita. Como futuros líderes de la región, creadores de cambios, innovadores e influyentes de la región, la juventud de la ASEAN es tanto el activo de la región como la esperanza del mañana, que debe de contar con las oportunidades significativas para influir en las políticas que tienen un impacto directo en sus vidas. Cierro cita, ASEAN 2022. Debido a ello, la organización ha demostrado tener planes de trabajo que consideran a las juventudes como parte de los ejes principales. Dentro de las actividades realizadas por ASEAN se encuentran los intercambios académicos, los programas de liderazgo juvenil y las oportunidades de voluntariado. Todas estas actividades con el objetivo implícito de fomentar la visión comunitaria entre los países miembros. El interés de ASEAN en los temas que son de importancia para la juventud no es algo nuevo. La organización participó en la firma de la Declaración de principios para el fortalecimiento de la colaboración de la ASEAN sobre la juventud desde el año de 1983, que firmó la promoción de las mejores condiciones educativas, profesionales y de vida para los jóvenes. Para lograr el desarrollo de todos estos proyectos, ASEAN ha desarrollado un aparato administrativo con 2 oficinas principales. En 1992 se funda la AMMI, por sus siglas en inglés, Asian Ministerial Meeting of Youth, que actualmente funge como la oficina principal de los proyectos de la juventud, y más tarde, en el 2002, la fundación de SOMI, por sus siglas en inglés, Senior Officials Meeting on Youth. En la actualidad, estas 2 oficinas son las más importantes y las que gestionan los proyectos. Estos proyectos se rigen bajo 4 ejes básicos, que son el emprendimiento joven, la empleabilidad juvenil, la apreciación de la comunidad juvenil, ASEAN, y el envolvimiento y la participación de la juventud en la organización. La siguiente, por favor. Otra, por favor. Muy bien. Dentro de esta investigación encontré algunos proyectos que me parecieron muy interesantes y muy llamativos. Por ejemplo, el primer ejemplo son los premios de la juventud, donde hay estos proyectos de reconocimiento internos en los que la organización reconoce a su población juvenil y la empodera. Por medio de este premio de la juventud ASEAN, se encarga de galardonar por medio de diferentes categorías a jóvenes de los países miembros de la ASEAN, por su participación en eventos o la creación de proyectos que beneficien la cooperación regional y el desarrollo. De igual forma, se realiza un reconocimiento a organizaciones locales dirigidas por jóvenes. Otro ejemplo de esto son los proyectos de cooperación internacional con terceros. Existe esta participación y este interés de vincular con países terceros, por ejemplo, Japón. Un ejemplo claro de esto es el Genesis, por sus siglas en inglés, es la red de Japón Este de Asia de intercambio para estudiantes y jóvenes, que de acuerdo con informes de ASEAN del 2019, desde 1973 se inició una serie de relaciones de cooperación internacional que vinculaban a estudiantes de ASEAN y Japón. Como un tercer ejemplo tenemos los proyectos enlazados con las redes universitarias. La organización regional cuenta actualmente con una red universitaria ASEAN, en donde se encarga de realizar proyectos de la mano con diferentes universidades de la región. Una de las últimas reuniones que hubo fue en el 2012. Este foro se llevó a cabo en Singapur y se encargó de vincular la organización con sectores de la educación superior de los países de la región, lo cual procura conectar lo local con el sector global. La siguiente, por favor. Muy bien. Para concluir, podemos decir que se estima que más de 10,000 jóvenes son beneficiarios anualmente por medio de un promedio de 60 de estos proyectos. Podemos concluir diciendo que ASEAN ha demostrado tener un interés como organización en la juventud de la región. ASEAN ha demostrado interés como organización en este sector poblacional. Y este mismo interés es el que le ha permitido desarrollar un aparato institucional funcional. Sus proyectos han demostrado estar vinculados con más de un solo sector, pasando por las organizaciones internacionales, el fomento a las asociaciones civiles o a la vinculación con la educación media superior de los países miembros. Las acciones de la organización son, sin lugar a dudas, un camino de oportunidades para muchos jóvenes. Gracias.
Muchas gracias. Cabe mencionar que invitamos a los estudiantes porque son nuestro futuro, son nuestros profesores en 5, 10 años, en 10 años a lo mejor ya van a estar en cada universidad en México o América Latina. Muchas gracias, Karina. La siguiente presentación invitamos a Marco Antonio Silva Barrón, estudiante de maestría en estudios de Asia y África con especialidad en Sureste de Asia del Colegio de México. Realizó estudios en historia del arte y tiene experiencia como curador y gestor cultural. Por favor.
Gracias. Buenas tardes. El heavy metal es un fenómeno global del que participan millones de personas. Se trata de un universo que combina aspectos performativos, musicales y visuales. El fenómeno en cuestión suele contar con amplias redes sociales semiautónomas que apoyan la producción, difusión, lo mismo que el consumo de grabaciones, fanzines y otros artefactos que, en un importante número de casos, según Jeremy Wallach, operan fuera de la industria musical dominante. Los melómanos del sureste de Asia no escapan a la internacionalización y localización de las sonoridades que generalmente se asocian al heavy metal. Y desde hace 30 años han creado espacios de sociabilización, intercambio y consumo basados en rasgos distintivos asociados a este género musical. Según el académico Jeremy Wallach, en los circuitos internacionales hay poca conciencia de la enorme escala y vitalidad de las escenas metaleras en el sureste de Asia, que demuestran el poder y la escala de la globalización de los géneros derivados del metal. El fenómeno de la música metalera es predominantemente o primordialmente horizontal, por lo que emerge especialmente desde los fandoms. Por lo antedicho, vale la pena detenerse en este tema en algunos países de la región en comento, lo cual permitirá reflexionar sobre las interconexiones entre individuos, colectivos, así como los vasos comunicantes basados en gustos comunes en el sureste de Asia. Me enfocaré en Indonesia, Malasia y Singapur debido a la interconexión y flujo constante entre los tres países. Desafortunadamente, el tiempo no me permite ahondar en otros países integrantes de la ASEAN, pero durante el espacio de preguntas y respuestas lo podemos abordar. Emanado de bandas anglófonas en los años 70, heavy metal es un concepto sombrilla que alude musicalmente a distintas constantes de composición y producción, cuyo resultado es un sonido monumental, caracterizado por guitarras distorsionadas, en las que los solos tienen particular protagonismo. Hay ritmos enfáticos, producciones vocales a menudo desfiguradas y, por supuesto, estridencia. Como explica Louis Kennedy, el género puede entenderse como un concepto general, amorfo y cambiante, por lo que hoy día, musicalmente hablando, el metal se subdivide en múltiples géneros o subgéneros que cambian según las circunstancias. El movimiento metalero en Singapur, Malasia e Indonesia puede datar su comienzo en la década de 1980 a través de grupos no profesionales que versionaban las canciones de sus bandas favoritas. Tiempo después, las bandas se dieron a la labor de escribir sus propias composiciones, primero en inglés y posteriormente en malayo. Hacia finales de la década de los 90, finalmente llegó una generación madura, cuyo trabajo detonó un género musical conocido como metal malayo. Este género llegó a tener una popularidad que rivalizó con aquella del pop comercial, las piezas emanadas del cine de Bollywood y algunas otras sonoridades en boga en el archipiélago. No obstante su popularidad, según los expertos, dicho subgénero metalero pronto se consolidó y estableció, aunque se habría manifestado como un fenómeno marginal y de mala reputación. Siguiendo los estudios de Wallach, es posible afirmar que a principios del siglo XXI, Malasia, Indonesia y Singapur eran la sede de algunos de los mayores movimientos del metal en Asia y el mundo. En Singapur, la escena del heavy metal tiene mayor popularidad entre la comunidad de idioma malayo y a lo largo del tiempo logró hacerse un lugar en el espectro musical nacional. Muy importante es que tanto las bandas de Singapur como las de Malasia pueden girar con relativa facilidad en Indonesia, puesto que allí ha habido bastante menos regulaciones en lo referente a trámites y permisos, situación que puede ser complicada en Malasia y en otros momentos en Singapur. En efecto, no obstante el entorno a menudo poco propicio a la disensión, durante la era de Suharto existió bastante tolerancia hacia la práctica rockera y su ejecución en vivo, lo cual se profundizó en la época actual en la que la sociedad civil se expresa con mayor desenvoltura. Cabe destacar que en Indonesia ha existido una prolífica trayectoria de festivales musicales, tanto modestos como más multitudinarios, por lo que para las bandas del entorno resulta por demás redituable estar en dicho mercado. Por el contrario, las bandas indonesias realizan giras por los países vecinos con menos frecuencia debido a consideraciones financieras y la dificultad de obtener permisos para tocar. La literatura más autorizada sobre el tema indica que el heavy metal en Malasia y Singapur se asocia comúnmente con el etnonacionalismo de la clase trabajadora, mientras que en la vecina Indonesia la escena metalera ha logrado establecer lazos que rebasan la religión, el grupo étnico o la clase. En términos generales, es común encontrar una íntima asociación entre metal y clase trabajadora, lo cual indica que, no obstante el origen indiscutiblemente exógeno del heavy metal, su gusto parece estar firmemente enraizado o naturalizado en las naciones archipelágicas del sureste asiático. Además, ha sido común que el metal se piense como un gusto más bien de los grupos urbanos y propios de las culturas juveniles, aunque pasados 30 años desde su surgimiento, se puede hablar ya que las bandas de heavy metal son populares entre muy diversos grupos etarios. Cabe traer a colación que en Indonesia el dangdut, un estilo easy listening, sincrético y que trasciende edad y género, continúa siendo el estilo preferido por los consumidores jóvenes de clase trabajadora. Más, el heavy metal le sigue muy de cerca. El fandom del metal a veces goza o padece del estatus de outsider, que, combinado con lo extremo de la música misma, a menudo pone a los metaleros en una posición vulnerable. El heavy metal, desde el comienzo, involucra prácticas líricas o performativas que suelen cuestionar o poner en duda los valores o los llamados valores tradicionales, o presenta visualidades que pueden ser demasiado agresivas para contextos donde manda el rigor social. Consecuentemente, los metaleros del sudeste asiático enfrentan desafíos similares a las escenas de otras partes del mundo, donde su elección musical a menudo no es comprendida o se ve más bien como antisocial, lo cual es común en todas partes. Sin embargo, sus escenas se han vuelto fuertes y vigorosas en los últimos años, a pesar de no ser un género mainstream. En años recientes, y a pesar del parón forzado por la pandemia, se ha visto cómo diferentes bandas han viajado a los grandes festivales metaleros que siempre suceden en Europa y que sirven de termómetro para saber las tendencias que interesan tanto a promotores como a los fandoms. En este sentido, llama la atención que ahora gustan bandas que incorporan elementos particulares de sus identidades localizadas, como por ejemplo la indumentaria de carácter religioso. Ay, se perdió. Bueno, aquí está. Ay, no. Como indumentaria de carácter religioso, la cual provoca tanto curiosidad como asombro, ya que de buen comienzo en los productos del heavy metal, asuntos como la religión eran temas que eran más bien objeto de crítica y escarnio. Sin embargo, la presencia de agrupaciones que incorporan elementos particulares de identidad y su aceptación en el circuito metalero internacional demuestra que este universo está abierto a la diversidad y que puede ser receptivo a formas de expresión lírica o performativa que no parecían posibles hace algunos años. Actualmente, en los países en comento, hay un buen racimo de bandas consolidadas, pero también es notable que, como en otros sitios, acudimos a la hibridación de los géneros, en los que, si bien no se pierde la parte estrictamente estridente y agresiva del metal, se busca progresivamente incorporar elementos que distingan tanto los looks como los sonidos de las agrupaciones con respecto a la generalidad. Del mismo modo, en los países del ASEAN, el heavy metal deviene cada vez más en una escena con un número importante de aficionados que contribuyen a la conversación internacional y a los repertorios sonoros que enriquecen a este universo cada vez más global, aunque simultáneamente más enraizado en lo local. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Marco. Queremos preguntar, ¿verdad? Pero esperemos que tengamos un espacio para sesión de preguntas y respuestas junto con la primera mesa, la primera mesa de discusión. La siguiente presentación invitamos a Miriam Alejandra García Cuellar. Es estudiante de maestría en estudios de Asia y África con especialidad en Sureste de Asia del Colegio de México. Es licenciada en Historia por la Universidad Autónoma Metropolitana. Por favor, Miriam Alejandra.
Sí, gracias. Okay. La geografía de la gastronomía en el sureste de Asia. La presente ponencia tiene como objetivo dar un panorama general de las relaciones entre la geografía de los países del sureste asiático y su gastronomía. El sureste de Asia es verde y húmedo, con grandes precipitaciones al año y en muchos lugares lluvias monzónicas, con complejos patrones de viento, agua y elevación que han creado diferentes tipos de relieves, de los cuales podemos encontrar dos tipos muy comunes y recurrentes, las colinas y llanuras. Estos relieves han dominado los grandes bosques entrelazados por ríos y arroyos que fluyen libremente. Una de las técnicas de cultivo muy utilizadas en el sureste de Asia es la tala y quema, que consiste en quemar un área del bosque para fertilizar la tierra con las cenizas y así obtener una cosecha abundante durante un año o dos, después de lo cual los agricultores cambiarán de área mientras restauraban el bosque en el área anterior. Los asentamientos humanos también estuvieron influenciados por la geografía de la región. Podemos encontrar a grupos que se asentaban en las colinas o montañas, que se denominaban grupos de tierra alta, los cuales tenían costumbres muy diversas y se caracterizaron por textiles, joyas, artesanías y productos alimenticios diversos. En estas tierras, los agricultores desarrollaron estrategias para vivir de manera sostenible mediante las granjas de temporales, a través de la tala de árboles, plantaciones de arroz y otros cultivos. Mientras que los grupos de las tierras bajas mantuvieron una variedad de contactos con sus vecinos de las tierras altas, usando los ríos como vía de transporte, teniendo así un intercambio río arriba y río abajo, de productos forestales como el ratán, damar, nidos de pájaro, por objetos valiosos como la porcelana o diversos productos de cosechas. En las colinas, la agricultura de tala y quema se convirtió en el patrón agrícola dominante, mientras que el cultivo de arroz húmedo dominó las llanuras. En lugar del uso de tal y quema de forma temporal, en las tierras bajas los agricultores crearon campos permanentes con parapetos diseñados para capturar agua y características para capturar agua y controlar su profundidad a medida que brotaban las plantas de arroz verde, se elevaban a través de las aguas poco profundas del estanque artificial y finalmente maduraban y amarillaban mientras los agricultores drenaban los arrozales para hacer campos secos en el momento de la cosecha. Actualmente la relación entre colina y llanura se está desmoronando. Cada día hay un gran número de penetración en las colinas para abrir minas gigantes y cosechar aceite de palma, apoderarse de bosques, humedales y grandes hectáreas de arrozales para crear un paisaje moderno de megaciudades, grandes suburbios en expansión y zonas industriales florescentes, y cubriendo así grandes extensiones de campo con plantaciones agroindustriales que producen plátano, coco, azúcar y caucho, así como las granjas camaroneras y pesqueras que ahora cubren las costas de la región que alguna vez estuvieron cubiertas de manglares. Como hemos visto, históricamente la gastronomía en el sureste de Asia ha estado determinada por su geografía. Por ejemplo, en el predominante consumo de arroz, pero a través de los intercambios de tierra alta y tierra baja, podemos ver que la gastronomía del área presenta una de las más variadas gastronomías del mundo, donde productos como el arroz, el pescado, las verduras y las especias son básicos en la cocina de esta área. Pero esta variedad culinaria no solo se compone de elementos locales, sino también se trata de un conjunto de gastronomías muy influenciadas por la cocina de China y la cocina de India, así como la cocina europea. Por ejemplo, esta influencia se puede observar en platillos como el curry, los fideos o el uso del cerdo o el pescado como productos predominantes. El arroz es uno de los mejores ejemplos que puede señalarse cuando se habla del vínculo entre geografía y gastronomía para una región como el sureste asiático. Siendo un cultivo que requiere gran cantidad de agua para su desarrollo, el sureste de Asia cuenta con un relieve y el clima idóneo para la producción de este cereal, que además representa la base de la alimentación de las gastronomías de dicha región. La existencia de gran cantidad de ríos y los monzones estacionales han permitido que desde hace milenios la práctica del cultivo de arroz, mismos que poseen un sinnúmero de variedades, el arroz no solamente ha sido favorecido por las características geográficas de esta región, ya que el cultivo de este producto también ha moldeado el paisaje de los países del sureste asiático. Basta con pensar en las afamadas terrazas para el cultivo de arroz que se han vuelto una imagen distintiva de los campos, colinas y montañas de estas naciones. En el caso del pescado, es otro producto que podrá verse en muchas preparaciones de la región, y en este caso puede entenderse la abundancia de este recurso alimenticio al considerar que tanto el sureste de Asia continental como el insular se encuentran permeados por una gran cantidad de agua, tanto dulce como marina. En la parte continental, el caso más notable es el río Mekong, que se ostenta como una de las cuencas hidrográficas con mayor producción pesquera atravesando los territorios de Vietnam, Laos. En la zona insular, por su parte, al ser la mayoría de los países de naturaleza isleña, son vastos los recursos pesqueros que pueden obtenerse en las aguas oceánicas que bañan las costas de países como Indonesia, Malasia, Filipinas o Singapur. Aunque cabe recordar que también algunos países del sureste de Asia continental se benefician de los recursos marítimos, sobre todo Tailandia y Vietnam. Un producto que es muy característico del sureste asiático, pero cuyo alcance ha trascendido fronteras, es el cultivo de la soya. Esta leguminosa suele ser muy relacionada con productos de alimentación del este asiático. Sin embargo, su presencia en la gastronomía del sureste asiático suele ser de gran importancia. Como ejemplo se encuentra el tempe, en el caso de Indonesia, el cual consiste en un alimento preparado a partir de granos de soya fermentado, siendo su popularidad mayoritaria en la isla de Java. Otro ejemplo es en Vietnam, donde la soya se usa para preparar los condimentos tu ong, que utilizan la pasta de judías fermentadas. Por supuesto, estos son apenas un par de ejemplos, ya que la soya está presente en una gran variedad de platillos del sureste asiático. Y hoy en día, la distribución de los cultivos y el uso de esta leguminosa se ha extendido a una gran parte del mundo. Un elemento muy importante de la gastronomía del sureste asiático se encuentra en sus salsas, mismas que pueden ser de gran variedad, incluyendo la de sabores picantes. En ciertas situaciones, las salsas pueden emplearse con la función de condimentar. En este sentido, pueden darse como ejemplos el caso de salsas cuya preparación deriva del pescado o bien del krill fermentado, las cuales pueden encontrarse en variedad de platillos de distintos países del sureste de Asia. Se le añaden algunos alimentos con la funcionalidad similar a la de la sal. Otro ejemplo lo podemos encontrar en las llamadas pastas de gambas o salsas de gambas, un tipo de salsa que además cuenta con distintas denominaciones en las lenguas del sureste de Asia. En indonesio se le conoce como terasi, en tailandés como kapi, en malayo se le llama belacan, para el caso vietnamita mam tom, y en el idioma tagalo recibe el nombre de pagong, alamang o aramang. Estas pastas se obtienen a partir de la fermentación del camarón y aunque una de sus características más notables es el fuerte olor que tiene, se trata de condimentos únicos y que permiten obtener sabores extraordinarios. Es otro ejemplo de las bondades alimenticias que el entorno geográfico del sureste de Asia otorga, pues al encontrarse muchos de estos países rodeados de mares abundantes en pesca, se hace factible la obtención de productos tales como el camarón y pescado para la elaboración de estas salsas. Volviendo a un entorno terrestre, y si recordamos que la ubicación geográfica del sureste asiático se inserta dentro de los denominados trópicos o zonas intertropical, lo cual explica que el clima del sureste asiático, predominantemente caluroso, húmedo y con abundantes lluvias, sea propicio para el crecimiento de la palma cocotera, de las cuales se obtiene otro producto importante en muchos alimentos de algunos países del sureste asiático, el fruto del coco. De hecho, la relevancia del coco trasciende el ámbito alimenticio en algunas naciones de ASEAN, ya que Indonesia, Filipinas, Vietnam, Tailandia y Malasia se ubican entre los 10 países con mayor producción cocotera a nivel mundial. Ahora bien, en el caso de la alimentación en el sureste de Asia, destaca el uso de la leche de coco como ingrediente en la preparación de determinados alimentos, de los cuales pueden mencionarse el rendang, el soto en Indonesia, el nasi lemak en Malasia, el kakanin en Filipinas y el tom kha kai en Tailandia. Estos son apenas unos breves ejemplos de platillos preparados a partir del uso de leche de coco, pues en realidad existe una enorme variedad, sobre todo en los países mencionados. Asimismo, muchas de estas preparaciones no son exclusivos de un país y podemos encontrar diferentes versiones o variedades de un mismo alimento en los diferentes países de la región. Es el caso del rendang, que se ha distribuido a diferentes lugares como Indonesia, Malasia, Singapur, Brunei y Filipinas. En resumen, la gastronomía del sureste asiático goza de una riqueza y variedad incomparables. Sus variados ingredientes han sido resultado de toda una serie de combinaciones geográficas que han permitido su desarrollo. Factores como el relieve, el clima, la hidrografía y la orografía han favorecido el surgimiento de productos únicos en su tipo. Sin embargo, el uso, el aprovechamiento e integración de dichos productos a la alimentación han sido por completo gracias al ingenio, creatividad e inventiva de los habitantes del sureste asiático a lo largo de la historia. Resultado de todo lo esbozado, puede concluirse que en realidad no existe una gastronomía del sureste asiático, sino más bien decenas o centenas de ellas, considerados por igual la variedad geográfica de la región, así como la diversidad étnica, lingüística y religiosa de lo que es sin duda una de las regiones más dinámicas y diversas del mundo. Para finalizar, me permito invitarlos a descubrir por sí mismos la variedad, riqueza y autenticidad que guardan los diversos sabores de la gastronomía de las naciones que conforman ASEAN. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Miriam Alejandra. La última presentación, invitamos a nuestro colega Jorge Bayona. Es profesor investigador del Centro de Estudios de Asia y África del Colegio de México. Es doctor en Historia por la Universidad de Washington. Fue investigador postdoctoral en Instituto de Investigación de Asia de la Universidad Nacional de Singapur. Se especializa en la historia moderna de las Filipinas y del sureste de Asia. Por favor, Jorge.
Muchas gracias. So we're running a little bit behind still. So I had this thing about the concepts of the concept behind area studies in Southeast Asia and comparing that to Latin America. So I will very briefly, in a nutshell, refer how sometimes when encountering scholars who study Southeast Asia, they are a little bit self-conscious about how it is a slightly complicated area to talk about compared to, say, Latin America, which seems a lot more compact. After all, Latin America has broadly a majority religion, two very interrelated languages, and a very common culture, which makes it make sense as a region, whereas Southeast Asia just seems to be overwhelmed with diversity, diversity of religion, diversity of language, diversity of culture, and so on, and also the background of how Southeast Asia as a concept came about as a result of World War II and the Cold War, and so on, making it a more complicated region. And well, to keep things very, very brief, so that we have time for the Q&A and so on. Latin America is a much more complicated and a much more problematic concept as well. Let's not allow the commonality of language and religion make it seem like a more sensible region. Latin America, in the name itself, privileges colonialism, right? It refers to the countries that colonize this region. An analogous concept to refer to Southeast Asia would be Euro-Asia, if we were to take the same logic, which would be a very impractical and inconvenient and just a generally bad term for the region, right? So also, Latin America itself, the concept, and I'm leaning heavily on the work of historian Michel Goba here, it also comes from warfare. It comes from a context of trying to continue the colonial project in Latin America even after colonization. Latin America is a concept that emerges among the elite Latin American thinkers as a way to oppose themselves to Anglo-Saxon America, to try to show themselves as the equals of Anglo-Saxons in their domination of indigenous peoples. So in that sense, it's not a really great concept either. It also came about as a result of war, as a result of the filibusterers, the American filibusterers in Latin America trying to take over countries in Central America and to try to create this sense of commonality between the nations. But even then, it has some issues. There were issues of like whether you could include Brazil in Latin America, given its very slightly different language and its imperial system of governance for a very large period of the 20th century. Eventually, once it became a republic, it became a lot easier to fold it in. But still, Latin America, it has a series of issues over who it includes and who it excludes. Do you exclude Belize? Do you include Haiti? Why not include Quebec? And so on. So it is a lot more complicated than that. And in general, just to try to stay, to keep my words even briefer than I had foreseen. In general, let's not let the diversity of Southeast Asia make it not make sense as a region. It makes sense as an area studies region in as much as you want to make it make sense. And also, the whole emphasis on the Latin languages in Latin America. I, for one, think it's great that all these languages continue to be used in mainstream contexts in Southeast Asia to a degree that is not common in Latin America. You do not hear Quechua being spoken freely in the media and in the press and in the streets in large parts of Peru or Bolivia. And the same can be said with a number of languages of other parts of Latin America, with perhaps the exception of Paraguay. So in general, I would just like to conclude with, Southeast Asia is a fantastic area studies concept. It always needs to be problematized and questioned. But yeah, Latin America is not any more cohesive or coherent in that sense. And I would like to thank you all for your attendance. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias. Todos que están aquí presentes, como el tiempo no podemos tener sesión de preguntas y respuestas en esta mesa, pero podemos hacerlo y durante en el brindis que vamos a hacerlo en el siguiente, es decir, vamos a cambiar el lugar y ahí discutimos más sobre todos los que hemos platicado aquí en 2 mesas de discusión. Entonces, oficialmente podemos cerrar esta discusión y quiero invitar al embajador de Tailandia dar unas palabras para también cerrar esta discusión.
Thank you, Madam
Yes.
Moderator. Thank you, Madam Moderator, giving the honor to conclude this session. Once again, I have to thank the College of Mexico for jointly organizing this event. It is an opportunity for ASEAN community here in Mexico City to have a chance to interact with the academic community here in the College of Mexico. And as I said from the beginning, that I'm very pleased to learn that there is an Southeast Asian study program here at this college, and probably one and the only in Mexico. So we hope that this activity will pave the way for further cooperation between the college and our community here in Mexico City. So I look forward to any future activities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you so much for the Asian Committee in Mexico City. So this is our honor to have you here in this institution. So we hope in the near future we can have another discussion. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Muchas gracias. Y los invitamos a cambiar, estar en el brindis. Ahí continuamos la discusión. Muchísimas gracias a todos. Muy buenas tardes. Nos vemos pronto. Gracias.